get into the main lesson of today. Title of the lesson is Casting Out Serpents. Are we prepared? In a world where sin reigns supreme and multitudes are compromised, we have been called to a task to be able to battle in the spirit against unseen powers that control our world. Are we prepared? Are our views of survival in line with those views of desperation that Christ and the and the prophets of the past had while doing the ministry? Is it possible that we are so conditioned to the sin and mentalities of this world that we have rendered ourselves powerless against the demons that walk amongst us? Are we even paying attention anymore? If met by demons, are we prepared to cast them out? They are manifesting themselves all over the earth, and the war started long ago. So what exactly are we waiting for? Today we will address the deception we are still under and how to get away from it. We will also address how we cast out demons with authority in our own lives as well as the lives of others if met by what they call today paranormal activity. With that being said, let's go into the book of Genesis. And we're going to get to start at the source of where this war started, where this battle started. Let's get Genesis chapter 6, verse 1.
The book of Genesis, chapter 6, reading from verse number 1, family, down to 9. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of the Most High saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose.
Right, so the sons of God, and for those that might not know who the sons of God or who the original sons of God were, they were the angels. Go on.
And the Most High said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days.
Right? So due to these angels coming down and taking men, or taking women, and getting them impregnate, giants were born. Now, due to the corruption brought by the watchers as well as their offspring, the Most High said he would give mankind 120 years. He says, my spirit, which is the Holy Spirit, shall not always strive for men. But for 120 years, he would call he would call back mankind to come back and serve the Most High, right? He used Noah and Methuselah to prophesy about this judgment, this deluge, this flood that was about to be sent by the Most High, right? So he did that for 120 years. Go on.
And also after that, when the sons of the Most High came into the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which are of old, men of renown. And the Most High saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Most High that he had made man on the earth.
Go on.
And it grieved him at his heart. And the Most High said, I will destroy man whom I created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repented me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Most High. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generation. And Noah walked with the Most High. And Noah begot 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Right? What verse you have?
Verse 10.
Go on.
The earth also was corrupt before the Most High, and the earth was filled with violence. And the Most High looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth.
For all flesh has corrupted his way on the earth, right? Now we know that Christ said, Yeshua said, that as the day of Noah, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be, right? Now, one of the things, and this is a side note, one of the things that was going on during this time was that all the flesh corrupted itself. Now, you'll find in the book of Jubilee, I think we go there as well, you'll find that during this time, what the giants as well as the fallen angels, what they were doing, they were splicing DNA. They were doing genetic modification, gene editing. Now, we're also in a time where we see through this, pandemic or the mRNA technology that they are also doing gene editing. So the same way how during the time of Noah, all flesh corrupted its ways, we're also living in a time where through what was given, a lot of the DNA structure of many people have been corrupted, altered. In fact, there's terms where now you're actually considered, because human people, you can't patent natural things that are made natural. But things that have been GMO, genetically modified, can be patented. And this is what they have done, where they have genetically modified a lot of people's DNA. So therefore corrupting, just like in the days of Noah, right? And that's a side note. But let's continue. So we see Noah found grace or favor in the eyes of the Most High. So even though all mankind corrupted itself, the Most High still understood there was a way, and that way would happen through Noah and his 3 sons, right? Let's continue. Let's go book of Enoch.
All right, we're going to the book of Enoch, family, chapter 15, reading from verse 8. And now the giants who were produced from the spirits and flesh shall be called evil spirits upon the earth, and on the earth shall be their dwelling. Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies, because they are born from men, and from the holy watchers is their beginning and primal origin. They shall be evil spirits on earth, and evil spirits shall they be called. As for the spirits of heaven, in heaven shall be their dwelling. But as for the spirits of the earth, which were born upon the earth, on the earth shall be their dwelling. And these spirits of the giants afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work destruction on the earth.
Right? So what did these evil spirits do?
Oppress, afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work destruction on the earth, and cause trouble. They take no food, but nevertheless hunger.
Right? So they take no food, they cause battle, they cause strife, they cause all these different destructions upon the earth through mankind, right? Who they're focusing on trying to destroy is mankind. So when you see brothers who are in arguments, which will eventually lead to somebody dying, these spirits are working in the mix, spurring these things to transpire, right? That's why you get a scenario where somebody kills somebody through anger and whatnot and be like, I didn't even realize what I was doing. It's because through that spirit of anger, this spirit now was able to get in and entice you even further to commit the act, right? Go on.
Nevertheless, hunger and thirst and cause offenses.
Right? So they hunger, thirst, cause offenses. Go on.
And these spirits shall rise up against the children of men and against women, because they have proceeded from them.
Right? So they're against mankind, but they definitely hate the women. They hate mankind as a whole. Read that part again. Just so it makes it seem like I'm not saying this. Because Deacon, it can sound like you're just making this up. You got to think against sisters now, Deacon. Go on, read it again.
And these spirits shall rise up against the children of men and against the women, because they have proceeded from them.
Because they did what?
Proceeded from them.
And that's what we know it's speaking specifically to the women. They came from them. Go on.
Chapter 16, verse 1. From the days of the slaughter and destruction and death of the giants, from the souls of whose flesh the spirits, having gone forth, shall destroy without incurring judgment. Thus shall they destroy until the day of consummation, the great judgment in which the age shall be consummated.
Right? So these spirits have a decree where they can destroy mankind without limits, and they do not get punished for destroying the sons of man. They don't get punished for this. Right? Now, they're allowed to do this all the way until the consummation of time, until the end. Right? Now, if you understand this, you understand why when that man who was being possessed by demons, by legions, you remember what the demon said to Christ?
You come before time.
Have you come to condemn us before our time? So the demons understand that they have an appointed time, and up until that point in time, their primary function is just to cause destruction within the earth when it comes to mankind. Right? Let's continue.
Over the watchers and the godless, yea, shall be wholly consummated.
Right? So go on, sorry.
And now as to the watchers who have sent thee to intercede for them, who had been afore in heaven, say to them, you have seen in heaven, but all the mysteries had not yet been revealed to you. And you knew worthless ones, and these in the hardness of your hearts you have made known to the women. And through these mysteries, women and men work much evil on earth.
Right? So through the things these angels taught to the women, to the men, it really helped push sin throughout the whole earth. Right? Now, just to kind of fill in some blanks here. So what the Most High did in order to bring judgments to the watchers, as well as their children, which were the giants, is he caused the spirit of war to hit all the children. And what they started to do, they started to battle against one another and destroy one another, right? Greek mythology refers to this time as the clash of the titans. So you'll see movies talking about the clash of the titans. This is the period they're talking about, when the fallen angels, their children, warred amongst each other, slaughtered their children, so that their fathers, being the angels, would see their destruction before they themselves would be put into prison in the lower parts of Hades. Right? Let me read the commentary. So because of our sins, which caused us to be compromised with angels, our offsprings were made into a new creation of perversity, which now haunts us until this day, and continues to help destroy us. Our own selfish desires have destroyed this world, and the plague of demons which operates behind the scenes in our lives are really ours to combat, right? So we see that through the sin of man, eventually angels were enticed, and through that, it gave birth to a new creation that would later on be the very demons that we're wrestling against, right? So this transpired through man's own sin, as well as the sin that came through the angels partaking in sleeping with women, right? Which they were not allowed to do that, right? But I want to go a little bit more. And let me finish reading this. It says, our own selfish desires have destroyed this world, and plagued of demons which operate behind the scenes in our lives are really our own to combat. They never get tired, just like our addiction, because they are there helping to fuel addiction and remain charged up through our active participation in sin, right? So these demons, they can never get enough of sin. They can indulge in as much as you can give them. In fact, your body will give out before they give out, right? Just to highlight that. Now, how do they destroy? And I'm going to touch on this, but I want to get a little bit more on what happened when these spirits became, when these giants became evil spirits, right? And I'm reading this. This is some extra biblical text that came across. And it says, the law of the survivors. Since therefore the souls of the deceased giants were greater than human souls, inasmuch as they also excelled their bodies, they, as being a new race, were called also by a new name. And to those who survived in the world, a law was prescribed of God through an angel, how they should live. For being bastards, talking about these angels, being the fact that they're half angelical and they're half human, right? For being bastards in the race of the fire of angels and of the blood of women, and therefore liable to desire a certain race of their own. They were anticipated by a certain righteous law. For a certain angel was sent to them by God, declaring to them his will and saying, and this is going into the law because everything is governed under law, everything. And we're going to get the law that was given to these giants and demons, right? These things seem good to the all-seeing God, that you lord it over no man, so that you lord over no man, that you trouble no one, unless any one of his own accord subject himself to you, worshiping you, and sacrificing, and pouring libations, right? Because you've seen a lot of, especially Black Lives Matter, pouring libations, right? And partaking of your table, or accomplishing aught else that they ought not, or shedding blood, or tasting dead flesh, or filling themselves with that which is torn of beasts, or that which is cut, or that which is strangled, or aught else that is unclean. But those who betake themselves to my law, talking about the law of the Most High, you not only shall not touch, but shall also do honor to, and shall flee from their presence. For whatsoever shall please them, being just, respecting you, that you shall be constrained to suffer. But any of those who worship me go astray, either committing adultery, or practicing magic, or living impurely, or doing any other of the things which they are not well pleasing to me, then they will have to suffer something at your hand of those or others according to my order. But upon them, when they repent, I, judging of their repentance, whether it be worthy of pardon or not, shall give sentence. These things, therefore, ye ought to remember and to do, well knowing that not even your thoughts shall be able to be concealed from him. Right? So these angels, the giants, were given a decree. And the decree was, or giants or the demons, right, was given a decree. The decree was like, you cannot harm mankind. The only way you can harm mankind if mankind subjects himself to you through worship. Right? So this has been the game. So this is why they set up a society now that has, the holidays and all these things, so that through participating, you subject yourselves onto these spirits. But this is the game. They only have power over us if we give them power over us. And usually, by us, how we give power over to them is through opportunity. So opportunity, where it be lust, where it be through indulgence, And this is why the Bible highlights moderation, moderation in wine, moderation in food, because all these things are avenues where now demons can come in now and start to work. And when they work, right? They start suggesting stuff into your mind, all these different things. And I'm going to touch on a little bit more as we go through the lesson. But this is one decree that was given to them. Let's continue though. Let's get Jubilees chapter 10. Let's get 1 to 6, and then we're going to go 9 to 13.
All right. Book of Jubilees chapter 10, verse number 1. And in the third week of this Jubilee, the unclean demons began to lead astray of the children of the sons of Noah, and to make to err and destroy them. And the sons of Noah came to Noah their father, and they told him concerning the demons which were leading astray, and blinding and slaying his sons. And he prayed before the Most High his God, and said, Most High of the spirits of all flesh, who has shown mercy unto me, and has saved me and my sons from the waters of the flood, and has caused me to perish, as thou didst the sons of perdition. For thy grace has been great towards me, and great has been thy mercy to my soul. Let thy grace be lifted up upon my sons, and let not wicked spirits rule over them, lest they should destroy them from the earth. But to thou bless me and my sons, that we may increase and multiply and replenish the earth. And thou knowest how thy watchers, the fathers of these spirits, acted in my day. And as for these spirits which are living, imprison them, and hold them fast in a place of condemnation, and let them not bring destruction on the sons of thy servant, my God. For these are malignant and created in order to destroy, and let them not rule over the spirits of the living. For thou alone canst exercise dominion over them, and let them not have power over the sons of the righteous from henceforth and forevermore.
Go on.
And he said, Let the 10th part of them remain before him, and let 9 parts descend into the place of condemnation. And one of us he commanded that we should teach Noah all their medicines, for he knew that they would not walk in uprightness, nor strive in righteousness. And we did according to all his words. All the malignant evil ones we bound in a place of condemnation, and a 10th part of them we left, that they might be subject before Satan on the earth. And we explained to Noah all the medicines of their diseases, together with their seductions, how he might heal them with herbs of the earth. And Noah wrote down all things in a book, as we instructed him concerning every kind of medicine. Thus the evil spirits were precluded from hurting the sons of Noah.
All right, so after the flood, when Noah would start again, repopulating the earth, once again, these spirits, understanding now they went from giants to being spirits, they were also on the other side of the flood, and they once again started to plague mankind. Now, what we can say the difference here is that Noah's son, or grandchildren, should we say, right? They also learned about what happened prior to the flood. I'm pretty sure Noah taught these things to all his children. So they understood the battle, and they understood, the fact that these spirits would still be present with them. But as we can see, they were still overcome by them. So Noah had to pray on their behalf in order for the Most High to bind pretty much 90% of them and allow Satan to have 10% of them. Because as Noah was praying, Satan also came to this meeting and says, no, you got to leave me some of them so they can help me do my work as well. So he left them 10%, and he put 90% of them in the earth, in Hades, right? In the place we know as hell, right? Now, he sent an angel to teach Noah all the remedies to cure against these spirits. But he also taught them, and it reads, all the remedies or all the medicines of the disease, together with their seductions. So he also taught them about the tactics these spirits would use to afflict mankind. Right? And this is what was given to Noah. Right? Today we're getting some of those tactics that we use, as we talked about, eating at foods that were offered to the Bible says, don't you know what the Gentiles offer? They offer unto devils. We understand the importance of why we can't indulge in those things. Understanding by us eating, we're also taking on these spirits. So we understand some of the tactics, right? Let's continue though.
Commentary.
Let me read the commentary. So Noah, as a righteous man, prayed for the deliverance of man from the attacks they were under from these demonic spirits. He prayed that the demon would no longer rule over the sons of men. It is our own actions in the earth that allow demons to rule over us, and we continue to be plagued with all manners of diseases. We must take back our authority instead of giving it over to these perverse creatures or perverse creation, right? So we understand how we gave them our power by sin operating, right? Or another way we can look at this, because we know that the Bible calls them unclean what? Unclean spirits. Now, unclean spirits need a what to operate in? They need an unclean vessel. So when you look at the law, and when you look at when the children of Israel were coming out of Egypt, one of the things the Most High extremely stressed, was about the laws of cleanliness within the camp. So the Most High always made sure that if you are unclean, you are outside the camp. Because his spirit dwelled in the midst of the camp, which is a clean spirit. So really and truly, in order for these vessels to have entry, they have to first make you unclean. And this is why it's important for us to understand what makes you clean and what makes you unclean. Right? Because that's another way they have a way of getting into. Right? Another thing as well, we see that the angel taught Noah the medicines out of the earth. Right? Now, this is something that many of us, depending on where you grew up and whatnot, we still have some of this operating in us unknowingly, ignorantly, right? And I say this why? Because, for instance, if you come from the islands, there's a bush for everything, right? There is a bush for everything, and half of the bush we don't even, it's like where you learn that from. Generations of my grandma showed me about this bush. Right? So this is a concept that we're well familiar of when it comes in terms of healing. Right? Now, and that's fundamental stuff we know growing up. Right? We come to the truth now and we understand the importance of that going into certain records. But we also understand that what Christ brought is far more greater. The laying of the hands is far more greater than that healing. And that's where we want to get to. Right? Let's continue. And let's get John chapter 8. Sorry, one more key point. Who stood in the way of these demons fully destroying mankind? Noah. And I'm highlighting that. Now, out of everybody, we can assume that Noah was a righteous man walking before the Most High. Right? In fact, the Bible refers to him as he was perfect in his generation. So, we have to understand the importance of the righteous. So the only one that can stop death and stop the attacks of these demons, right? And they attack, as I said, through health. They attack through, mentally. We see it mentally. We see it physically, like tumors. All these sicknesses are really all these things come from demons, right? But one of the things we see, and it's something we touched on last week, was that the righteous stood in the way of the plagues. So Noah, being the righteous man, had authority to stop what was happening, what the demons were doing. And we see that he prayed towards the Most High. The Most High sent angels. The Most High bounded 90% of the demons. And he probably would have done all of them, but Satan came and said, nah, come on, I need some. I got work to do. Leave some for me. Right? But we see that the prayers of a righteous man, you see what I'm saying? And really and truly, that's something, if we can reach the perfection of righteousness, that will be given to us. That same authority over death, over the destroyer, which is Satan. Right? We looked at it last week where when the plagues hit Israel, you had Aaron go out with incense. And Aaron, through righteousness, was able to turn away the destroyer, which is Satan. So we understand the power of righteousness. If we can obtain it in its totality. Right? And I'm going to touch on the importance of its totality. But let's get John chapter 8. And let's get 31.
Look at John chapter 8, verse number 31. Then said Yeshua to those Jews which believed on him, if ye continue in my word, then are ye my disciples indeed. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. They answered him, we be Abraham's seed, and were never in bondage to any man. How sayest thou, yea, shall be made free? Yeshua answered them, verily, verily, I say unto you, whosoever committeth sin is the servant of sin.
Right? So whoever committed sin, and this is the reality of it. Whoever has committed sin is the servant of sin. So it doesn't matter how much good deed to do. Doesn't matter how righteous in your mind that you feel you are. If there is still sin, you are a servant to that sin. And what you'll find, and all you got to do is really check yourself. Do a self-check. Try not to do it. And if you still do it, you realize it's not you that's in control, but something else that's enticing you to be controlled. Right? Do that. Everybody knows what entices them the most, what that sin they're dealing with particularly. Try not to do it. And if there's something enticing you to do it, then that's a clear indication there's something other than you in you. And that spirit is enticing you for it to be fulfilled, have its needs filled. Right? Go on.
Verse 35. And the servant abideth not in the house forever, but the Son abideth ever. If the Son therefore shall make you free, ye shall be free indeed. I know that ye are Abraham's seed, but ye seek to kill me, because my word hath no place in you. I speak that which I have seen with my father, and ye do not that which ye have seen with your father. They answered and said unto him, Abraham is our father. Yeshua said unto them, if you were Abraham's children, ye would do the works of Abraham. But now ye seek to kill me, a man that hath told you the truth, which I have heard of the Most High. This did not Abraham. Ye do the deeds of your father. Then said they to him, we be born of fornication. We have one Father, even the Most High. Or we be not, Salakia. Yeshua said unto them, if the Most High were your Father, ye would love me, for I proceeded forth and came from the Most High. Neither came I of myself, but he sent me. Why do ye not understand my speech? Because ye cannot hear my word. Ye are of your father, the devil, and the lust of your father will ye do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it.
All right. Now, we must understand that if we continue to sin, we are servants to this spirit that Satan and the other rebellious angels brought forth in the earth. He was their father, and we in turn become children of the devil, being raised by his children in sin. This means we are complicit in our own destruction and really are spokespeople for Satan's agenda, right? Now that's why most people don't want to stand up for truth. They are compromised with sin and many hurtful lusts. Are we also compromised? Are we in secret like the children of the devil? Let's look at the problem, one of many, which may be an indicator of whether we struggle in secret and need some self-examination, right? So, a few things here I want to touch on. And one of them is being the fact that, because at this time when Christ was speaking, the children of Israel, clearly they knew who they were, right? They obviously had an understanding of the one and true living God. They said, you know what, we're not bastards. You know, we've only dealt with the Most High, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And yet with all this understanding, all this wisdom, yet they had no understanding about whoever you serve, you become subjected to. So they never understood this dynamic. And what Christ identified by their actions, by the mindset, we could also determine who was leading them, who their father was. Because if their father was of the Most High, then they would be able to understand the things of the Most High. But if their father was the adversary who they were being led by the Spirit, then the very things of the Most High they would deem as things of the devil. You guys see the angle where I'm coming at? So let's look at this today. We can, we'll look at this in two different ways. And this is one example that I brought up, that I always bring up. But you know that one person that hears the word of God speaking, and they just don't want to hear it? Who's telling them in their head not to hear it? Satan, their father. Right? So that's once they know that it's good, that they know that they want to hear it, but their father is saying not to hear it, because if you hear it, you're going to be held accountable. So that's one way of how we can look at it. I had another way in my head. Slipped my head. Hopefully it comes back to me. Here's the other way. We'll read out of the Bible. We'll read. Let's read. We'll use the scripture. The Sabbath, keep the Sabbath day holy. Let's read that scripture for a second. Let's go back there and just read Exodus chapter 20 about the Sabbath. We'll read that. We don't necessarily have to go there. But we'll read keeping of the Sabbath out of the book. Right? And they'll say, what will people say regarding the Sabbath? Give me one excuse they'll give you. Right? Or that was given to the children of Israel. Who gave them that mindset? Right? Who gave the pastors that are teaching this mindset? Who taught them that mindset? All goes back to Satan. So we are byproducts of whatever we worship. So when we are worshiping Satan ignorantly, to some degree we're byproducts of what he created. And that's why it says, when you were children of darkness, children of this world. But what the Most High did is he separated us from children of darkness and has called us now to be partakers of the children of light. So this is why Christ is like, you are of your father, Satan. And as long as we are being led and controlled by these spirits, really and truly, we're at his disposal. When you read in the Apocrypha, it says, one who cursed Satan, one who sins and curses Satan, curses himself. Why? Because you're cursing your very master, who has dominion over you. You're not free yet. So this is an angle that a lot of people we don't even look at ourselves and say, hold on, am I still being controlled? And that's the first place we need to start, right? Because, I was talking about last week how we're quick to say, oh, brother, you got a spirit on you. You got a spirit. And then many of us, we got our own spirits that we're still trying to vanquish from ourselves, right? Well, let's continue.
Yes, the article.
Let's go into sleep paralysis.
Right. You're in an article in wikipedia.org. Paralysis. Sleep paralysis is when, during awakening or falling asleep, one is aware but unable to move. During an episode, one may hear, feel, or see things that are not there. It often results in fear. Episodes generally last less than a couple of minutes. It may occur as a single episode or be recurrent. The condition may occur in those who are otherwise healthy, those with narcolepsy, or may run in families as a result of specific genetic changes. The condition can be triggered by sleep deprivation, psychological stress, or abnormal sleep cycles. The underlying mechanisms is believed to involve a dysfunction in REM sleep. Diagnosis is based on a person's description. Other conditions that can present similarity include narcolepsy, atonic seizure, and hypokalemic periodic paralysis. Treatment options for sleep paralysis have been poorly studied. People should generally be reassured that the condition is common and not serious. Other efforts that may be tried include sleep hygiene, cognitive behavioral therapy, and antidepressants. Between 8% and 50% of the people experience sleep paralysis at home, at some time. About 5% of the people have regular episodes. Males and females are affected equally. Sleep paralysis has been described throughout history. It is believed to have played a role in the creation of stories about alien abduction and paranormal events.
Right? So they'll give you it's alien abduction. They'll give you everything but demons. You see what I'm saying? Because they can't expose what this really is. Right? Give me a second. They can't expose what this really is. But many are affected with this. And I'll be surprised the amount of people that I know, they'll say to me, Deacon, I know what it is when something's holding me down in my sleep. Right? But they say, oh, it's no big deal. Demon attacks happen every day, B. Right? It's normal. But and to be honest, because there's nobody in the earth telling us the truth on how to combat these things, a lot of people are affected. Many people are affected with no solution. You know the solution they have? What's the solution they have? Who do they go when they're suffering with this? Right? They go to psychiatrists.
Sleep medication.
So they open them up. Right? And in a lot of cases, if it's not the psychiatrist, and it's crazy because even that, talking about confessing your fault, we know where the psychiatrist got that from the Most High. But if it's not going to the psychiatrist, some people, you know where they go? They go to the Pope to go confess their faults. Right? But really and truly, they never give you how to fix it. They give you how to cope with it. Because when you go to when you go psychiatrist, when you go, a lot of times what happens is they also give you the medication, which is, according to the Greek, the pharmakia. And the pharmakia, according to the Greek, is the sorcery, witchcraft. So they lead you back down that rabbit hole, further down that rabbit hole. And the thing is about it, that's crazy about it, so you're dealing with one spiritual attack, trying to get relief, only to buck up in the next spiritual attack. Because you go to this, and a lot of medication, and it never fails me. I always say, just wait for it. Just wait. This will help you with depression. But you may want to consult your doctor because you can get suicidal thoughts, schizophrenia, massive bleeding, heart attacks. So, on one hand, they're coping with the issue, but on the other hand, they're opening you up to a bunch of other more, another handful of issues that could come from the side effects from dealing with this sorcery, this pharmakia. So they never really give us a solution. Right? Let's continue. So this is a big problem that many go through in secret, yet no one seems to have the real solution. The reason is because it is not an internal thing that can be cured with just a pill, although the medical world puts out information about it as if it is a thing we should become comfortable with. Notice it never mentions the other theory that it may be demonic. Aliens are more readily discussed than our own demons, which we must get rid of. With what should we really do if these things are happening? So what should we do if these things are happening, right? Now I'm going to tell you guys, and I shared this story before, of a friend who went through the same process. He suffered from sleep paralysis, woke up, couldn't move, panicked, right? And because he never understood, because majority of the people that I spoke to that this has happened to, they'll say a demon held me down in my sleep. They'll at least classify it with something spiritual. But if you don't have that discernment, if you never really grew up in a spiritual house, what else do you have? So therefore, you're like, I got to go see the doctor. And this individual that I know, that's exactly what he said. He said, you know what? I couldn't move. I woke up and I just couldn't move. Went to go see the doctor. The doctors are trying to make sense of this. Can't make sense of it. He goes to a specialist. That's what normally they do. They can't figure it out. All right, we'll send you to somebody else. Specialists diagnosed him with cancer in his spine. Cancer in his spine. He's still moving around. Because I said it happened for a short period where he couldn't move. He's still walking around functioning. They said, okay, you must have cancer in his spine. 6 months later to a year, he's dead. So it started off from a spiritual, because remember, their end goal, these spirits, is to do what? To destroy. So it started off where he was suffering a spiritual attack. Through that spiritual attack, we're having no guidance, no understanding, opened him up to go see these physicians of no value. They diagnosed him with spine cancer, only to be on his deathbed. They gave him 6 months. He lasted probably a year. But with all the chemo, all the other things that they open you up to, he was never the same again. Right? And we see so many other people go through the same thing. I know I have an aunt dealing with depression. Gave her stuff for depression. Through that, she started to get schizophrenia. She went to the doctor. Her son left her for an hour. Came back. She's dead. So, because we're not learning to deal with the source, really we're at these demons' disposal. Right? Wherever they lead us, right? They afflict us. They lead us to their buddies. Their buddies making profit and now coping with it because it's a profit to keep people sick. Cycle goes on only to lead you to your death. Right? So let's continue. And let's read this article. I believe it's an article.
Okay. So what should we really do if these things are happening? So there's a bullet point here. And it says, assess the situation. Take a second with an unbiased view. Ask yourself, are there things in your life that you covered after?
Right? So the first thing we have to do is we have to analyze the scenario. Whatever scenario we're dealing with, whatever demonic possession we're dealing with, or those loved ones, friends, or whatnot that we're dealing with, we first have to analyze the scenario. what are the entry points? What are things in your life, and I'm going to get Sister Carolina, what are things in your life that are allowing these spirits to come in, right? And let me pause it then. Sister Carolina, you want to say something?
I wanted to say that's like, in here they will put it like something medical or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But us back in Haiti, I don't know if in the part of the island the same thing, but back in Haiti, we always know it's a spiritual attack
Okay.
when that's happened. And people will say, oh, to call in the name of Caesar de Borgia, the name of the Caesar de Borgia,
Yes.
to call that, and then you be released. When you do that, it's happened. I remember back in Haiti, that's what was happening to me. Really, that depends where I am.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm in like a house or close to people who's really in the voodoo thing, so stuff like this, that's my happened to me. So, but I didn't know, but I know it's like it was a spiritual attack.
Okay.
Then I will call in that name and it's you just release. But I will since I come in the truth. So I remember that's happened to me once. Then I did not call at that name. I called in Yeshaya's name, and that's never happened.
Okay.
Because they said that when you call that, okay, you call in
The other name.
the other name. When you call it, they always said like it's different. It's like the highest.
Yes, he's a higher demon.
He's a higher demon. So when you call all the other one, abide to it, and the will just. But you call on that name, and that's gonna what's gonna make you. It just like let the
That's what
demon
pretty much cast them out.
cast them
Got them out, right?
Yeah, but it's not like, but what's true is that, and I remember that happened to one of my cousins not too long ago, and I told her, she told me, this keep happening to me, and I said, why you don't call in Yeshaya's name and it's music? And after that, she told me, you know what? That I've been having this type of problem. Since you told me to call Yeshaya's name, I called it. And that's never happened to me. It's been like maybe almost like 2-3 years.
All praises to the Most High.
God.
All right, and that really shows you the power of names,
Yeah,
right? Understanding the power of Christ's name and whatnot. But that's what exorcism, what they do. They'll use a higher demon to cast out a lower demon,
Yeah.
right? Where when it comes to the Most High, calling on Christ, there is no other name above Christ's name. Christ has been given dominion over all principalities and powers, so therefore all have to follow and obey his believers, those that follow him, right? Operate in his name, right? So, Khan, absolutely. And, we have other people who have come on the body who literally were seeing spirits and dealing with these attacks and whatnot. And as they, started to believe the Most High, starting to follow his ways, they're freed from this. They've been freed from this, right? Let me take one more, and then we're going to just go back on course. I just want to get through the lesson.
Just like years ago, when I moved in this new house, I was in my room because I was fasting. So I kind of just separate myself from my husband and I was sleeping in the room. And as I was sleeping in the middle of the night, there was a demon, huge demon. I just that came and it's like it just grabbed me by my collar, like if I was a rug doll. It's like my spirit, right? And then I got it. I could actually tell, right? So I jumped on my sleeve and I started to rebuke. And the demon said, "Why did you bring your God here?" And I said, "Because I'm a child of the Most High God. Wherever I go, He's there." And I rebuke him in the name of Yeshua.
All praises, right?
Because I'm a kind of, when it comes to demon and rebuking, I'm a kind of crazy kind of a child of the Most High God.
Mhm.
Okay?
Mhm.
And wherever that power comes from,
Mhm.
I'm telling you, I feel like it could move the house.
Mhm.
When that happened, because I ain't playing with you. You and I ain't no friends. This is my home. You're not welcome here.
Come,
And
come.
that ever since then,
All praises, right?
Con.
And really, that's the authority, that we have to learn to claim. We have to learn to grow in that authority. But it's a two-way street, right? Because we also have to, like, for instance, that authority will increase the more our obedience increases, right? But let's continue.
All right, we're at the bullet point. Question number 2. Are you continuing to lust and allowing your mind to drift into sinful thoughts without shutting them down?
Right? So are you still allowing these spirits to entice you to the point where it's so enticing that eventually it gets you to commit? Right? Because we also understand a lot of these sins that we operate in usually start with a thought. Usually through the enticing of the eyes, the ears, all these things Satan uses through our senses to entice us to participate, right? Are you able, once being enticed, are you able to cast down those thoughts? And if not, then clearly you're following, Spirit's leading, right? Go on.
Question number 3. Are you leaving the door open to the demons through unhealthy spiritual habits you hide, like adult films or so-called recreational drugs?
Right? So are there, going back to those avenues, are those things, channels opened up where these spirits are still getting? Are there still things that you still need to put down that are allowing these spirits to come in? Right? Now, here it talks about recreational drugs, but I'm going to say recreation and even non-recreation. Right? So for instance, if you're dealing with a medication that opens you up to schizophrenia, thoughts of suicide, all those things, then clearly that's an entry point where the spirit can now come into, right? Now, the thing that's crazy about the time that we're living in is that you'll find that access to psychedelic drugs, that's the proper term, is way more rampant than when we were growing up. I'm going to say in the 80s, 90s. As you get to the 60s, 70s, that they were there. Because 60s, 70s, heroin, acid, all these psychedelic drops were being used. And a lot of people were experienced, they used to have a term called chasing the dragon. Right? Chasing the dragon was a term they used, but it's really through these drugs where they open up, they talk about that third eye, and it really opens you up to seeing these demons, seeing these spirits, right? That was in that's Vietnam, I'm going to say during free love time. But in our time, you'll find that the younger generation, they're getting reintroduced to these psychedelic drugs. So they have the Xannies, Mollies, all these different terms that they're classifying these drugs that really open you up to spirits. And on top of that, right, the younger generation know exactly what I'm talking about, because you hear about the Xannies, you hear about the Mollies, you hear about all these different things, right? But on top of that, you know what else you're hearing in the music as well, or in the culture? So they're taking these things that open up to demons, and then on top of that, they're rapping about their demons. Right? So they're on one end, they're opening up to themselves to demons. And then the other one, they have one where, me and my demon part with me. It's me and my demons. And to some of them, I don't know if it's, maybe it's just a new slang where, me and my dogs. Instead, for us it was me and my dogs. We're rolling. For them, it's me and my demons. We're out here. Right? Or you ain't a demon. But for some of them, I actually wondering if they actually really, really understand that they actually, like for some of them, are they really, really seeing these demons? Are they really, really talking and getting wisdom from these spirits? And I'm going to say I wouldn't be surprised if there's some of them who have gone that far down that rabbit hole where they're actually being led by these entities. Right? Let's continue though.
All right. Question number 4. Are you still in the midst of outright sin, making excuses like, I'm just not ready to change yet, but I will get there?
Right? Are you there? Now, if that's the case, then believe it or not, whoever's telling you that, or where you're getting that mind, that thought process from, is coming from a demon. And you know how we used to get it? Let me tell you how it used to present itself. Oh, I'll get baptized. I'll get baptized when I'm ready, when I'm perfect, when I got things in order, and you know, my life is more intact with righteousness. When I get my things corrected, then we'll get baptized. Right? Believe it or not, that's a thought from a demon. Because the reality is, we're going to that water because our life is a mess. Not because we have everything under control. We're going to the water because our life is a mess, and we need Christ to help us to make it through the journey ahead. Because we want to get right. We want to be cleansed from all these demons that have been plaguing our thoughts. But I'm telling you, everybody, I'm not going to say everybody, but I'm saying I know there's a lot of people in this room who've had those same thoughts. And the fact that we all had those same thoughts, I'm putting it on my hand. The fact that we had all those same thoughts in itself is a testimony that they came from demons. And that they were plaguing all of our minds. Let's continue.
Question number 5. Are you comfortable in being a part of overly emotional situations and have formed a bit of a need to feel that adrenaline associated with them?
Right? So read it again. Are you comfortable in being part of an overly emotional situation and have formed a bit of a need to feel that adrenaline associated with them? Give me an example of this. Anybody have an example of this?
Like, for example, like people like tapping through like stealing,
Okay.
getting into fights,
Or pretty much what everybody else is doing.
yeah.
Right? So you ever get that feeling? Where like, it's like, we'll use, simple. Everybody else is going to the party. Everyone's going to this dance. I gotta go. Right? I'll tell you how I felt. I'll get you, Brother Benai. I get you how this scenario. Thank you, and thank you, Brother Josh. Thank you for that. I'll tell you how I felt this spirit when I was young. So I remember when we were playing, when you're young, just getting into the realm of liking girls and whatnot. And all your boys, a lot of the friends that I chilled out with were like 2 years older than me. So they've already, were a little bit more advanced out with talking to girls and whatnot. And you're the only one in the pack that doesn't have a girl. Now, I hate to say it, but the peers weren't looking at me like I was Paul or, any other righteous brothers that were keeping their chastity. They weren't saying, yeah, man, Joseph. No. It became so bad and filled with so much pressure. Like, yo, Jigs, I can't see you with a girl. Yo, walk on. Like, and I'm there with my basketball, trotting with my basketball, just, I'm trying to make it to the NBA act. Like, allow me, But then, you got like 5 guys coming at you, where's your girl? Yo, big man, like, yo, you can't, like, you can't be around us and don't have a girl. Like, come on now. You feel pressured. And then, if you feel too pressured, you start making up names. Yeah, I got a girl. And, I'm going to say, I don't think I was ever programmed to lie. I don't think we were programmed to lie. Understanding, Most High designed us to be righteous vessels. So then you're forced to lie now. And if you're like me and you can't deal with the pressure of lying on the spot, you say the first thing that comes to your head. And if you watch a lot of TV, you're going to say the most stupidest thing to say. And for me, it was Jenga. It's like her name was Jenga. And, for those who grew up in the 90s, You take a block from the middle and you put it on top. Like, that was a common commercial. And for almost a year, my name, they called me Django. Because I said I had a girl named Django. But this is one of those pressures where you feel you have to be part of it. You know what I mean? And by being part of it, it really opens you up to these demon attacks, right? And I think about Psalms or Proverbs where it says, if any of your friends call you and entice you, saying, come, let us go, what is it? Let us go rob, right? Not to hearken on to them. But in some of those scenarios, you can feel compelled because in order to be part of the gang, in order to be one of the boys, in order to be part of the cool club, you have to operate in this manner. So I know for me, there's so many different things you get introduced to, chasing that fame, chasing to be part of the in club. And what you find that a lot of these trends, especially, when you look at Facebook, social media, a lot of these trends will align you with a lot of the paganisms. You see what I'm saying? So you really have to be careful of following trends and following what everybody else is doing. Right? That's because there's a lot of times we get pulled in and we get compromised. Because for me, that's where I got compromised. So now, instead of focus and keeping innocent, now it's about dressing fly to get check girls. Now it's about going to the malls. You remember back in the days, you would just go downtown or Eaton Center and you'll walk the mall for the whole day to go look girls. No purpose. You didn't go there to buy anything. You just went there to hang out, to find girls. And that now becomes the focus. And therefore, through, we start opening up all types of portals, doors, for now demons to come in, spirit of lust, And a lot of these things we pick up at a young age, and we're still dealing with them all the way in our later manhood, trying to purge ourselves from these things we were introduced or picked up as children, right? Let's continue, though. I had to... Let me get Brother Benai at the back. Brother Benai, you want to say something? And then Brother Caleb. You want to say something? No?
The question was, you asked, some people are addicted to arguing.
Yes.
When I say that, they don't realize it, but it's like a drug to them. They don't feel good until they get into an argument.
So they have the spirit of debate, right? Now, what do the spirits like to do? Debate, cause strife. Mm-hmm. So we see who's operating there, right? And it's very important that when we see that, we're able to identify it and not partake. Because, for instance, these spirits are to debate and do battle. I always say it takes two to tango. But a lot of times, because we don't see these spirits, we both give in to them. So it's working in one, and then now it's passed from one person to another person. And we're overcome with that spirit only to get into a battle which can lead to blood being shed. Right? So it's very important that us who have spiritual eyes can identify when these spirits are operating and not fall for their tactics, right? You want to say something, Brother Kim?
Yes. Now you mentioned portals. There are portals that are less evident.
Yes.
And mothers will know that have children. Refined sugar, right?
God.
Give that to a child, okay? 1 piece of cake, 2 pieces of cake, 3 pieces of cake. What happens to that child, okay? Uncontrollable.
Yeah.
Goes crazy. Mm-hmm. You can't control him anymore. And it's through the sugar that these little devils had entrance.
God.
Yep.
God. And I'm saying because I struggle with that as well. Right? I be real. Like if somebody told me, because, it's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword, right? But if somebody told me, sugar is as addictive as cocaine, I probably would have stayed away from sugar. Because I understand the damage of cocaine. I definitely understand that. But I didn't understand how dangerous I don't think my parents understood how dangerous it was.
We were raised by our grandmothers to eat a piece of cake at every meal, no? And they pushed us on us. because
Fair
they didn't know.
enough.
They didn't know.
I mean, you gotta have some type of cake. But when you're at the point where you're eating raw sugar like I was, you got a problem. You got a problem. You know what I mean? So, but it goes back to, as I said, it goes back to moderation. It goes back to, because as I said, wine can do the same thing. In or in eating can do the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Once you get past that point of your limits, everything accessible or excess, you're feeding something else. You're no longer feeding yourself. You're feeding the spirit now. Right? So we always got to be careful of that. But yeah, if you can deal with natural sugars, let me take one more and then let's just finish up the lesson.
Yeah, just to answer the question where it said, are you comfortable in being part of an overly emotional situation and have formed a bit of a need to feel that adrenaline associated with them? And also to answer Brother Bernard's question, when you go into the book, Testament of Dan, right, the spirit of anger,
Yeah.
it actually tells you that the spirit of anger actually gives the desires of men to desire to be in that position of being in a perishable state like anger.
So envy too.
Why? Because they can be erased.
So that spirit's always causing you to be mad at something or cause strife or cause division basically.
Because it also says, just to add on to that, it says that it's going to make your ears keen to perceive grounds of provocation. So you might just be between yourself, just doing something simple, and the spirit of anger is in you, making your ears like, yo, you see what he said, react to that, right? On top of giving you that desire. So yes, it does lead to an addiction, because anger will make you feel powerful when you go into the scriptures, when you go into the New Testament, right? How it will increase your strength as well, right? So going back into the addiction, anger will actually make you desire to be in that state of mind.
God.
How much more the spirit of fornication,
God.
the spirit of lying, right?
You know, you made me think about something there. And I know I touched on this in times past, but you also made me think of, because for instance, whatever spirit you're dealing with, that spirit is always trying to kind of have a short place, for you to always run to, so to speak, or just be comfortable operating in that state, whatever that spirit is trying to keep you in. So I know, like for me, and I talked about this, how, for instance, feeling lonely, even though I hate being like, you hate feeling lonely, but at the same time, you embrace being lonely. And, that goes into that same addiction that you get. So you don't want to be lonely. In fact, all the songs you listen to is echoing on you don't want to be lonely. Right? It's telling you about the songs I used to sing, you got a woman to go home to. Those are the songs, right? About loneliness, the Luther, all those different songs we're listening to. But at the same time, you've been doing it, the mind, this is how the demon tricks you. You've been doing lonely for so long that you start to accept that this is just who you are. You like to be by yourself. You don't want to be around people. Right? And then what happens through that, it's so crazy because remember I told you I used to deal with this. Where I'm not really an introvert. I'm an introvert, not really an outrovert. And it's not necessarily that, but it's through that mindset where anytime the spirit wanted its time, it would tell everybody to go home. And I tell you guys, I would start stretching, pretending like I'm tired. And just so people get the idea that, it's time to go home. But by the time everyone goes home, I'm up. Till 5 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. Me and the demon. You see what I'm saying? So, like you said, whatever you are dealing with, it will try to keep you stuck in that space. Right? And I was thinking about that. It wanted me to be alone so it could have me to itself. And I can continue down this road of this self-destruction, right? Last one. I know I said last one last time, but let's get the last one. Go on. Okay, we got two. All right, let me get the brother at the back now. Go on, Caleb.
Yeah, so I think the lesson is So I was watching this show that is called Something Compass with a guy that can cut that with a knife two times, whatever. And they made the angels like one's called Noah and one's called Enoch, and they're two male angels that are lovers. They made all the angels who are fighting against heaven to be like this glowing light, you know. And then each person on earth, you know, have a demon that they walk with, and if you sever their demon, then they become zombies, right? So I thought that was really interesting. You know, like they have subliminal, now they're just putting it right out there publicly, or they want you to see it.
Yeah.
And this morning when I was getting my girls ready, they were watching the TV, and a pretty old woman, you know, was reading bedtime story, and she's talking about, I need my monster, you need your monster to go to bed, your monster, you can't do anything without your monster, you know, and stuff. And I had to be like, yo, shut that off. You know?
I was say the Shabbat alone.
Damage control, because, you know, these things they put out there, you know, and they're now telling people that you need demons, you need evil spirits, you need it from, you know, there's something to be mindful of.
And then if it's not, that is the crafts and the witches shows and all these things. And we're seeing a lot of that resurfacing. Even though when we were growing up, they had those things, the movies, craft, and a lot of witchcraft shows that were there. But we're definitely seeing it now in the schools, where they're bringing these things into the schools as well, right? Let's continue. You got any more, Daryl? Hold on. Let me get the question here. And let me, can you hold that last question? Because I know I said last question like 3-4 questions ago. Sorry, go on.
No, I just want to know, like, it's just like say if you're feeling that you're not feeling well, you want to come to church, but at the same time, you've been feeling so sick. But the moment you decide in your mind that, listen, sickness or no sickness, I'm going to church. And then when it sees that you're actually going to go, all of a sudden you start to feel better. It's a mind, you know, playing of the devil. So
Right, they're trying to keep you home, not to hear the word, right? Right? You got more to read there?
No, you got the commentary.
All right. So because of our own sins, which cause us to be compromised with angels.
Oh, this one again.
Hold on, I'm in the wrong part?
Yep.
Let me read it up here. So if you answer yes to any of these problems, then you now understand 9 chances. So you now understand 9 chances out of 10 why you have been attacked in your sleep or attacked in any area of your life, any spiritual attack. You understand why. These demons are allowed to attack us at times to really straighten us out. But the moment we begin to stop our own wickedness, they are no longer powerful in our lives. There are no magic pills that stop this experience. What causes the stopping of these things is the overcoming of your carnal mind through choosing righteousness, which is founded through keeping the commandments under Christ. If the Bible said to do it, then you must follow through to receive deliverance, right? So the Bible says to do something, we have to follow along with what the Most High says in order to receive this deliverance, right? Now, I want to read this part again. It says, the demons are allowed to attack us as often as we, really straighten us out of life, but the moment we begin to stop our own wickedness, they no longer have power in our lives, right? So as we start to straighten out and walk in righteousness, the demon starts to lose control. But the demon can go dormant. You ever had an illness that went dormant? It's like you went to the doctor spotted it, you went back next week, doctor doesn't see it, and then it comes back a few years later. You hear scenarios like that, right? Well, these spirits can also become dormant. The minute that they see that you're now following the Most High, they'll go into a part of the body that's still dealing with sin. So for some people, it may be I'm trying to give the best example, but in some areas it may be, you know what, I'll go dormant of the hand, the back, part of the foot, right? It'll go somewhere where, where it can still find a home, so to speak. So whatever sin you're dealing with that you haven't completely, it'll find a home there and dwell with you as you and whatever part of the body that's involved in that sin, whether it be drinking, whatever it be, it'll still find an avenue and it'll try to make itself less noticed. So for some people who deal with demonic possession, they might not deal with it as often, or they might not deal with it for a while. Spirit went dormant. But the minute that, he finds you're going back into that old man, he will resurface. And in some cases, he'll come in and he'll bring somebody else to keep you even more in a worse state than you were in the beginning. Right? But this is the reality. They also understand when you're now trying to serve the Most High, they're going to also do things to prevent you from serving the Most High. Because for them, you becoming righteous pretty much leaves them without a vessel to possess. So they ain't gonna, and you see it when Christ was casting out demons, some of them were screaming, had people in convulsions. They were fighting to keep the vessel that they've been living in for the last, how old are we? 30, 40, 50 years, depending. Right? So they're fighting to keep their home. Let's continue. Wisdom of Solomon.
All right, we are going to the book of Wisdom of Solomon, family, chapter 18. We'll read from 11 to 25. Ready?
Yeah, go on.
All right. It says, the master and the servant were punished after one manner, and like as the king, so suffered the common person. So they shall together had innumerable dead with one kind of death. Neither were the living sufficient to bury them. For in one moment the noblest offspring of them was destroyed. For whereas they would not believe anything by reason of the enchantments upon the destruction of the firstborn, they acknowledged this people to be sons of the Most High. For while all things were in quiet silence, and that night was in the midst of her swift course, thine almighty word leaped down from heaven out of the royal throne as a fierce man of war into the midst of a land of destruction.
Go on.
And brought thine unfeigned commandment as a sharp sword, and standing up filled all things with death.
Right? So we know that, and we read this last week, but we know we're talking about during the time of Egypt. Right? And during the time of Egypt, Moses and Aaron were sent to Egypt to free the children of Israel from the Egyptians. Right? Now, Moses called Aaron to drop the rod, and he performed the sign, and the sign was his rod turned into a serpent. Right? Who did Pharaoh call out? Who did he call out? His wizards, his magicians. And they also casted out a rod, and it became a snake. And what did this do for Pharaoh? It hardened his heart. Pharaoh said, okay, well, hey, my sorcerers can do the same thing. No big deal. No, why am I fearing your God? Moses went to the river, turned the river into water. Who came out or turned the river into blood? Right? Who came out and tried to do the exact same thing? Sorcerers. So what you'll find, because the battle for Moses, I think the two magicians were called Jambri and, anyone remember the name? Jambri and...
Jameis and Jambres.
Jameis and Jambri, which withstood Moses, same way how, right? They withstood Moses and Aaron. Right? That were given the authority of the Most High to go and free the children of Israel, and also gave them the ability, because for Moses and Aaron would be unto Pharaoh a God and his prophet. Right? Stick with me here for a second. I'm trying to not lose my thought. The wizards were there to oppose the saving hand of the Most High. Today, the wizards, which are your scientists, which are quote unquote the WHO organization, you guys know what I'm talking about? The WHO organization are there to withstand the Most High's healing organization. So just like the sorcerers and magicians withstood Moses, these guys are here to withstand those of truth that come in the same spirit that Moses and Aaron came in, which was they came to Egypt to free their people in the name of the Most High Ahia. So I'm highlighting that because we also have this job to free the people, okay? And tell them about the land of promise and how the Most High will one day take us from this Egypt and bring us back into the land. Well, in order to do that, we got to go through these sorcerers as well and teach them the healing, to show them the healing practices of the Most High compared to what Satan and his sorcerers are giving, which is death. Right? So it's really the same game, just on a bigger playing field. Right? But let's continue going.
And it touched the heaven, but it stood upon the earth. And suddenly visions of horrible dreams troubled them sore, and terrors came upon them unlooked for. And one thrown here and another there, half dead, shewed the cause of his death. For the dreams that troubled them did foreshew this, lest they should perish, and not know that they were afflicted. Yea, the tasting of death touched the righteous also. And there was a destruction of the multitude in the wilderness. But the wrath endured not for long. For then the blameless man made haste and stood forth to defend them, and bringing the shield of his proper ministry, even prayer and the propitiation of incense, set himself against the wrath, and so brought the calamity to an end, declaring that he was thy servant. So he overcame the destroyer, not with strength of body, nor force of arms, but with a word, subdued him that punished, alleging the oaths and covenants made with the Father.
Right? So Aaron was able to put an end of the plague or death that was running rampant through Israel through his righteousness. Right? And this is, as I said, we said this in the beginning of the lesson, but this is really and truly what we're trying to highlight, is the power that the righteous have over the power of Satan and his dominion. Right? We have authority and power to not only cast these spirits away from us, but also to cast them away from others. But it's a two-way street. First part we got to do is grow in our obedience. That way we can grow in that authority. Another part when it comes to healing, right? Because a lot of times, for instance, and I'm still learning on this, so if I'm wrong, definitely open for edification. But in order for somebody to be healed, that person who's receiving the healing also has to have the faith. So a lot of times we want to heal people, but you can't heal them if there's no faith, if they don't believe. And we see this time and time again throughout the Bible. Christ couldn't do much because they lacked belief. In fact, he's trying to heal. He had to take everybody out of the room who didn't believe. And only Peter and the parents he allowed in the room where he could bring forth the daughter back to life. So where there is disbelief, Most High really cannot work. And we see this for the children of Israel, but we also see this for also the other nations as well. Because, for instance, when the other nation when the sister from the other nation came to be healed by Christ. And Christ is like, you know, what I got is for the children. And she was like, even the dogs get the crumbs off the table. So she believed and understood to come to Christ to receive that blessing, to receive that healing. And Christ even healed her. But in order for that to happen, she first had to believe that he was able to heal her. Meaning that she was listening to the discourse of the Jews. She was in tune with the religious practices. And even though she wasn't of that nature, an Israelite, she believed and had faith that that was the true way and that he could heal her. And she went out and she received that healing, right?
Just like the woman with the issue of blood.
Exactly, right? And that's another great example. Because Christ was so filled with the Spirit that all she had to do is touch his garments and they were healed. But it even came to other parts, and you read this in the scriptures, other parts where righteous men were just in the presence and demons had to flee. There's scripture that talk about how the shadow of Peter, if I'm not mistaken. And people were healed just from that. And that's what I'm saying. This is the authority that we have. But in order to obtain it, we have to reach that state where the Bible calls that state of perfection. That state of being without sin. Right? And this is what it means when Christ says, the truth shall set you free. Free from what? Not just free from the tricks of Satan or the delusion or free to the discourse of this world, but also free of the things that have dominion and control of the vessels in this world. And we know that Satan has been given this world for a time period. So in order to unloose his chains, Christ gave us this truth to set us free from the lies that he's put out there, but also from the spiritual chains that held us in bondage for years. And he gave us the keys to it, but not only to help ourselves, but to help others. And that's why this gift that he's given to us is so important. Because it's the only thing that can free the masses from the chains that's holding them down. Right? Let me finish up, and then we'll get all of that. Go on.
Verse 23, for when the dead were now fallen down by the heaps, one upon another standing between, he stayed the wrath, and parted the way to the living. For in the long garment was the whole world, and in the 4 rows of the stones was the glory of the Father's graven, and thy majesty upon the diadem of his head. Unto these the destroyer gave place, and was afraid of them, for it was enough that they only tasted of the wrath.
Right? And it was enough. So of these things of holiness, righteousness, the destroyer, Satan, is afraid of. Right? So just like the Egyptians during the first Exodus experienced horrible visions and dreams, we receive them today as a warning and foreshadowing of our own destruction to come if we don't repent. The Father promised that we would receive all the plagues of Egypt, yet the demonic attacks are seldomly spoken of. There were evil spirits which were also released on the people of that time, and it took a righteous man to deliver the rest through prayer and fasting, who were found worthy to survive it. It also said the righteous even were touched by death in the wilderness. Think about it. Let me read it again. It also said the righteous even were touched by death in the wilderness. Think about it. Aaron's son died for their wickedness, so that shows no partiality with the Father. It tells you, furthermore, that the destroyer was afraid of righteousness. We must change. Let's get Deuteronomy 28. Let's get 27 to 29.
All right. Give me when you're ready.
Go on.
The Most High will smite thee with the botch of Egypt, and with the emerods, and with the scab, and with the itch, whereof thou canst not be healed. The Most High shall smite thee with the madness and blindness and astonishment of heart, and thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee.
Right? So the Most High said these plagues, due to our disobedience, these plagues would be upon you, and they would be pretty much as a sign. Right? We would deal with the same plagues that we dealt with in Egypt. Right? So let's use Egypt for a second. Who brought the plagues? The Most High through who? Through Moses. Most High used Moses, right? And the Most High allowed his will to be done through Moses. Moses proclaimed it. The Most High allowed them to happen. Who healed the Egyptians? For instance, because we know they never learned their lesson, so who healed them? No. Yes. But let's get more specific. Who healed them? How did Moses heal them? So how it would transpire, Moses, I need you to go to Pharaoh. Tell Pharaoh, let my people go. If not, I'm going to send hailstones, boils, all these things upon the people. Moses goes to Pharaoh. Pharaoh, Most High told me to tell you, let his people go, that they can go out in the wilderness. Pharaoh says, I'm not listening to this God. Moses goes back out. Moses, I need you to hold your stick up high. Moses holds up his stick up high. Flies, frogs, all these things start coming. Pharaoh calls Moses. Moses. Sorry, for I repented. You are more right than us. Get rid of these flies. Moses says, okay, when I leave your presence, I will inquire of the Lord, and we'll get rid of the flies. So Moses would go out, and he would pray before the Most High, and the flies would leave through the prayer of Moses. So therefore, who was the physician? Moses was. And this is what we've been called to be. Right? So we know, for instance, our people, due to the disobedience of the forefathers, will be subjugated to all these different spirits, spiritual attacks, all the plagues of Egypt. Right? And they would need, because we know this is happening due to their sin, they would need righteous men to help them to acknowledge why this is happening, going back to the spiritual war that we're dealing with, and also pray and lay their hands on and heal them. So it's really the same game here. This is why the Bible tells you, if any man's sick, let him go unto the elders and let them pray over them. Because the lot that was given to them, like even when you read in Leviticus, anybody see a doctor in Leviticus? If a plague was hidden, who did they go and see? They went to go see the priest. And the priest would examine them. Okay, let's examine him. Okay, I see leprosy. I see a boil in the skin. All right, here what? Let's put him away for 7 days. 7 days we bring him back out. We examine it further. But it was the priest that was in charge of that whole healing thing, because they understood it was spiritual, right? Even when you study Western medicine, those that were coming in through captivity, they stayed away from the Western doctors. Why? You know what Western medicine was? I'm going to bleed you. I'm going to bleed you. They used to do bleeding. I'm going to cut you. And I forgot what the other one is. But they still, think about how they deal with it. They poison you. Right? By medication. If not, they cut you. And if not, they bleed you. It's the same practice, even though they are more advanced with it and whatnot. But I'm saying a lot of people didn't want to deal with the Western medicine and would go to see who? The bush doctor. You know who the bush doctor was? It was us who know about the bush. That was us. But then eventually they started to make these things obey a man and da, da, da. And not to say some of it didn't go into that, but that's what pretty much made us stay away from that practices of natural remedies. And we just went into the pharmakia way of path because they started to portray that as this is the way to go. That's old-fashioned. That's not backed by science. Right? And that's why Timothy says, beware of science, or falsely called. But let's continue.
Commentary.
Let's get the commentary. Which commentary?
Yeah, right after Deuteronomy.
So the commentary, let me read the commentary. So as we read in Jubilees, it was the demons that were destroying man with plagues as long as the Most High would allow it. The Egyptians also, at the end of all they went through, literal darkness, yet today we are smitten just like they were and walk around as a byproduct of our curse in spiritual darkness. Okay, so the reasonable demonic influence has been addressed that we can see like diseases and so-called sleep apnea. But what about witnessing full-on possessions? If you are in the midst of a situation where somebody is actually possessed, there needs to be questions asked that may be uncomfortable, right? So this is a scenario where we're dealing with somebody that we know is full-blown possession, right? So usually this manifests itself in parts of schizophrenia, paranoid, all these different things really are in this realm, right? How do we address this? How do we deal with these scenarios? Go on, Brother Shamar.
All right.
Right, so we got to ask some questions that may be uncomfortable, but we got to get to the source of the issue. Go on.
Are there drugs involved?
So, are there drugs involved? As I said, both recreational and non-recreational. Go on.
Is there sin of other sorts within a present location that may have been accessed to bring on the episode?
Right, so is the environment that you're in, is it an environment that is surrounded by so many different spiritual doors, or doors for demons to now come in, right? How is the environment? Is it an environment that is, the Spirit of the Lord can dwell in, or is it an environment where demons and, all those different things dwell in? So the environment counts, right? Go on.
Is there abuse which has transpired whether currently or previously, and is that particular abuser still around?
All right. So going back to the environment, this also means the people in the environment as well. So if you got a house where you got someone using drugs upstairs, drunkard downstairs, all these things, obviously they're dealing with spirits. So you're going to have this house with spirits in it. And, maybe you're in that scenario and you can't control everybody in the house, but you have to, protect your own space that you're in, right? Second point is there any abuse? Is there anything that you were introduced as a child? Trauma. All those different things you have to identify, right? Because we're trying to identify the point of entry. Everybody has a point of entry, right? Now, one of the things that I see especially with the younger generation, and I see it all the time, and you hear it a lot of it in music, is you'll hear, well, my friend died, so I started to ride. So the point of entry was he experienced somebody dying, and through somebody dying, that spirit of anger or revenge now has consumed him. And now he's opened himself up to the spirit of anger, the spirit of revenge. So now he's righted for the death of his friend. right? This is areas that happen it's so common in the inner cities, right? That was his point of entry. A lot of times he'll say, that's when I became a demon, right? So we got to identify that. What's the next one?
Are the spiritual practices different from the doctrine of Christ, including idols of some sort being used by the person?
Right? So, what are the things this person's into? Well, you'll find a lot of people who claim to be religious people, well, they're still dabbling in their horoscopes. Right? They're still dabbling in a lot of the festivities of the world. And in some cases, and you're seeing a lot of this, especially in gospel music now, where like the two worlds are merging. You're seeing gospel singers at the Grammys. And some of them, they're interviewing them, but they'll interview them because, Satan loves to make a spectacle of the children of God. They'll ask them, what artists are you looking forward to see tonight at tonight's Grammy? Oh, I want to see Little Nas X. What? Like literally, no, I've seen interviews where gospel singers are saying, we want to see Little Nas X. The same guy that's doing a lap dance all the way down a pole to hell to land upon Satan's lap. This is the guy that gospel singers are saying, you know what, we want to see him perform tonight. So, I mean that I can't even justify that. That one is crazy. I don't understand that one. But nonetheless, we're seeing where, being a Christian, I can partake of pretty much everything because God knows my heart. And that in itself, a demon's misleading them. You see what I'm saying? Because the Most High has called us to be separate from the world. Come out of here. Whoever is friends with the world is an enemy against the Most High. We can't have both. But now we're seeing where modern day Christians, we want both. We want to indulge in the world, and also when Christ comes. We can't have it both, right? So these are just examples of things to examine in order to be able to fight back against the spirits which are present during a real possession. If you understand the soldiers on the battlefield warring against you, then you can formulate a plan of attack to overcome them. Now let's look, and try a true weapon against the demon, right? So we're going to identify those things. But if you understand the enemy, if you understand how demons work, you also understand how to overcome them. So one of the things we understand is I have power over my vessel, and I have to submit my authority to these demons in order for them to get authority over me. Mm-hmm. But even once they get that authority, if I repent and follow the Most High, get baptized, that I can rid myself of these spirits. Even after I'm baptized, say if I'm overcome by these spirits again, well, through prayer and fasting, I could combat these spirits. But if you do this, if you understand, as I said, the battle, you understand how to operate on the battlefield, you understand the do's and don'ts in this engagement and how to engage in spiritual conflict or spiritual battle. Therefore, you'll understand the armorry that you need, as well as the power through the laying of the hand that's been given of you as a weapon against them. Also prayer and fasting, right? And I did touch on that. But let's go and let's get some of those. Let's get the prayer and fasting, I believe. And let's get Mark chapter 9, verse 17 to 22.
We're in the book of Mark, chapter 9, verse number 17.
And we're going to go to 29, actually. Go on.
And one of the multitude answered and said, Master, I have brought unto thee my son, which hath a dumb spirit. And wheresoever he taketh him, he teareth him, and he foameth, and gnasheth with his teeth, and pineth away. And I spake to thy disciples, that they should cast him out, and they could not. He answered him and said, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him unto me. And they brought him unto him. And when he saw him, straightway the spirit tear him, and fell down on the ground, and wallowed foaming. And he asked his father, How long is it ago since this came unto him? And he said, Of a child. And ofttimes it had cast him into the fire, and into the waters, to destroy him. But if thou canst do anything, have compassion on us, and help us. Yeshua said unto him, If thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth.
Right? If thou canst believe. So in order for this work, he also has to believe as well. Go on.
And straightway the father of the child cried out, and said with tears, Lord, I believe. Help thou mine unbelief. When Yeshua saw that the couple came running together, he rebuked the foul spirit, saying unto him, Thou dumb and deaf spirit, I charge thee, come out of him, and enter no more into him. And the spirit cried and rent him sore, and came out of him, and he was as one dead, and so much that many said, He is dead. But Yeshua took him by the hand and lifted him up, and he arose. And when he was come into the house, his disciples asked him privately, Why could not we cast him out? And he said unto them, This kind come forth by nothing but prayer and fasting.
Right? So this kind can only come out through prayer and fasting, right? So if you connect both accounts in Mark, Matthew, Yeshua called the generation of that time perverse and faithless. If that generation was perverse, how much more do we need to be clear on our lives? Or, let me read it again. How much more do we need to clean up our lives to pull off a true casting of spirits, right? So if that generation was perverse and wicked, right? What I would have said is, how much more ours? Right? Because let's think about this. Paul, Peter, all of them were operating. They knew their children of Israel. They understood there was a promise given to them. They understood of sin, right? And that they were supposed to be children of light. They understood this, and yet that generation was perverse. We're in a generation where we have no ideals of these things, nor of spiritual battle, or the war that's even against us. So therefore, we are ripe for the picking. Because if it wasn't for the grace of the Most High, these things would still be hidden. The enemy didn't want us to know these things. Go on.
You're still reading.
I got to still read? Let me read. So it is a serious matter in which the power to do so will come by our discipline in the Spirit. The discipline had cast out spirits before, but there are more powerful spirits which have attached themselves to a person, which have been with them their whole life, which we also have to contend with. Understanding its manner of how it uses a person and its nature is also key to our breakthrough. This also proves that full disclosure must occur for a spirit to truly be cast forth. Right? So this explains why we need a disclosure. This also touches on the fact that there's levels to certain spirits. The apostles, they were casting out many spirits prior to this, but they came against a spirit that had a little bit more rank, and as a result of this, Christ had to come in and show them that, there's certain spirits that we need to actually fast and pray them out. Right? Let's get second Esdras. And I highlight this, why? Because I said there's some spirits we're dealing with. You may have, we may come, we may pray over you, do the anointing, it may not go away. We might have to say, okay, you know what? All of us, we're going to do a fast and prayer to get to the root of weaning out that spirit. Right? Let's get 2 Esdras chapter 2, verse 38. And this will be our closing out scripture here.
Book of 2 Ezra, chapter 2, verse number 38. Arise up and stand. Behold the number of those that be sealed in the feast of the Most High, which are departed from the shadow of the world.
Right? So these are those that will be at the Most High's table and have rejected Satan's table, as well as the demons that are sitting with them that are looking to have a partner. Go on.
And have received glorious garments of the Lord.
And have received what? Glorious garments of the Lord. When do you get these garments? Anybody? When do you get these garments? When you're baptized. Go on.
Take thy number, O Zion, and shut up those of thine that are clothed in white, which have fulfilled the law of the Lord. The number of thy children whom thou longest for is fulfilled. Beseech the power of the Most High, that thy people which have been called from the beginning may be hallowed. I Ezra saw upon the Mount Zion a great people, whom I could not number, and they all praised the Most High with songs. And in the midst of them there was a young man of high stature, taller than all the rest, and upon every one of their heads he set a crowns, and was more exalted, which I marveled at greatly. So I asked the angel, and I said, Sir, what are these? He answered and said unto me, These be they that have put off the mortal clothing, and put on the immortal, and have confessed the name of Ahiah, now and are the crowned, and received psalms, or alms. Then said I unto the angel, What young person is that crowneth them? And he giveth them alms in their hands. And he answered and said unto me, It is the Son of the Most High, whom they have confessed in the world. Then began I greatly to commend them that stood so stiffly for the name of the Lord.
All right, so these are they that were able to stand up for the name of the Most High, but also to stand in his ways. When it says stand up in the name of the Most High, it's talking about standing up in his truth, in his righteousness. Right? These are those that the Most High would consider his servants. And as we saw, it was a multitude that no man could count, linking into Revelations as well. But these were they that were able to obtain this, right? That were able to free themselves from spirits and also help others to free themselves. So what I'm really highlighting, that eventually we will get to this point. How do I know this? Well, it's been prophesied. So this is what we need to strive for, to be part of this multitude that chose the Most High's table and rejected sitting at Satan's table. So with that being said, let me say this. Stand in this evil day and overcome your wickedness. Through purity we will cast out serpents and obtain the day of promise in which we will all be rewarded. Believe and conquer all. Lack faith and be conquered by all. That being said, family, Shabbat Shalom.